All living creatures on Earth have built-in survival instincts. And while feeding, clothing, and shelter remain the three major elements of survival, there are some instances where a whole lot more was needed. You wouldn't believe what some individuals have lived through. In this video, we'll be looking at 10 survival stories that actually happened. Keep watching. Number 10. Hugh Glass. If you've watched the movie Revenant, then you would have heard of Hugh Glass. He was an Irish-American involved in the fur trading business. While on a trading expedition in 1822, Glass got separated from his crew and ran into a mother grizzly and two cubs. He was eventually mauled by the bear and was severely injured. Thanks to a few weapons he had on him, he was able to kill the bear. However, when his mates saw what had happened to him, they assumed it would only be a matter of time before he dies. They had to continue their expedition, but two men were paid $80 to stay with him until he died. They left him all the same. Alone and badly injured, he managed to make the 200-mile trek back to camp, where he met up with his crew. During his trek back, he fed on insects, raw fish, and snakes. Number 9. Vesna Vulovic. Vesna was a 22-year-old flight attendant who was on board a flight from Stockholm to Belgrade via Copenhagen in 1972. Their flight, JAT Flight 367, exploded in mid-air, less than an hour after they had left Copenhagen. The plane took a nosedive from over 33,000 feet in the air, down into the Srbska village in the Czech Republic. She was rescued by a villager who managed to keep her alive until a proper rescue team arrived. She was the only survivor from the crash, although very badly injured. Doctors even believed she would never walk again, but amazingly, she was on her feet in just 10 months after the crash. Number 8. Beck Weathers. Beck Weathers, an American pathologist, embarked on a trek up Mount Everest in 1996. Along with his crew, they decided to make the daring climb, but things got out of hand very fast. Thanks to a harsh blizzard, very bad visibility, and fatigue on the part of the crew members, they couldn't locate their camp. The wind blew Weathers down the mountain, and his crew members assumed he died from the fall. However, he woke up the next day battered and bruised, and made his way to the camp. His left hand fingers, his right arm, some parts of his nose, and several pieces of his feet all had to be cut off due to frostbite. Number 7. Juliane Kopik. Teenager Juliane Kopik also has an amazing survival story. On Christmas Eve in 1971, she and her mom took a flight from Lima, Peru, headed for Pucallpa to see her father, who worked as a zoologist in the Amazon jungle. The engine of the plane was struck by lightning while in mid-air, and the plane came crashing down into the Amazon from as high as 10,000 feet. Miraculously, she survived the crash, but everyone else, including her beloved mother, lost their lives. Badly injured, confused, and lost in the middle of such a large forest, she decided to keep moving. She used many survival techniques she had learned from her dad to overcome several challenges and treat her injuries. She found a stream which led her to a hut occupied by Peruvian loggers. They took her in and helped her treat her wounds before proper rescue arrived. She spent a total of 10 days lost and alone in the jungle. Number 6. Tammy Ashcraft. While sailing from Tahiti to San Diego with her fiancé, Tammy Ashcraft was left to survive on her own after a perilous storm hit and damaged their boat. The storm threw vicious 40-foot waves which rattled their boat and left Tammy unconscious. When she woke up, she could not find her fiancé, so it was up to her to make it out of sea alone with a damaged boat. With a head injury, she used a broken pole and storm jib to form a makeshift sail, then pumped water out of the cabin. She was at sea for 41 days, living off very few supplies before she was found by a Japanese research boat. Number 5. Passengers on Flight 571. On the 30th of October 1972, a rugby team along with some family members and supporters were on board a Uruguayan Air Force Flight 571. Thanks to extreme turbulence, The plane crashed into a snow-covered mountain, and many of the passengers died instantly. The ones who survived did the most horrific things to stay alive. After they had run out of supplies, they actually started eating the dead bodies on board, starting with the captain and co-pilot. One woman couldn't bear the idea of eating a dead person, so rather than survive, she starved to death. After 72 days, the surviving passengers finally came across some men on horseback, who later alerted the local authorities. Number 4. Aaron Ralston. Being an experienced climber, Aaron never thought he'd be a victim of the mountains, but he was. During one of his hikes in April 2003, he found his arm caught in between the mountain wall and an 800-pound boulder in the Canyonlands National Park in Utah. Unfortunately for him, no one knew he was there, so he had to figure a way out by himself. After days of eating candy bar crumbs and drinking his own urine, Aaron decided he wasn't going to die there, so he used the torque from his trapped arm and a 2-inch knife to amputate his own arm. He lost 25% of his blood doing so. He was able to make his way back down the mountain and sought professional medical help. Number 3. Juana Maria. Juana Maria is famous for spending 18 years alone on a remote island near California. Being from the Nicolino tribe, she lost most of her tribesmen due to migration to California's mainland, as well as to massacre by Alaskan Kodiak sea otter hunters. In 1836, 300 of her remaining Nicolinos decided to leave their home and move to the mainland, but she refused to go with them. She was said to have lived on the island alone with her son, who died shortly after the rest of her tribesmen had moved. Hence, she was on the island all alone, and she stayed that way for 18 years. During this time, she lived in a hut made of whale bones, and she survived mostly on dry meat. She was later taken away by a hunting party in 1853, but she died just 7 weeks after leaving the island and arriving on California's mainland. Number 2. Alexander Selkirk. Born in 1676, Scottish sailor Alexander Selkirk is termed the real-life Robinson Crusoe. After being dumped by his crew on a deserted South Pacific island, he was expected to die not long after. He didn't. Instead, he built his own hut and fashioned weapons, which he would use to hunt or defend himself against invaders. He spent 4 years alone on the island before being rescued by an English privateer, Woodes Rogers. Number 1. Mauro Prosperi. Mauro Prosperi spent 10 days alone in the Sahara Desert while he was competing in a 6-day race. He was incapacitated by a strong sandstorm and lost his bearing. Lost and confused, he kept moving and ate raw lizards, bats, snakes, and insects along the way. To stay hydrated, he drank his own urine. After days of walking without anyone or anything in sight, he decided to kill himself by slitting his wrists. Luckily for him, he was so dehydrated that his blood couldn't even flow out. He kept moving until he found a settlement in Algeria, where he finally got help. There you have it. 10 survival stories that actually happened. Share your thoughts with us about this video via the comments section. Don't forget to like and subscribe as well, so you can stay updated with more great videos like this. See you next time.